Amazing. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. Wait. Hang on. Just do all of that again. Cheers. Yeah, again.
Planning to get a new phone recently. I've been pretty happy with my Pixel 2 XL. It's a great phone, awesome camera, sweet orange button. But then almost as soon as I started seeing reports of lag on MKBHD and other sites, Panda started chewing through its app just a little bit more slowly. And then this thick boy came along, the Note 9. I've just signed a 2-year contract. And like anyone who has made a tech purchase on impulse recently, I'm out here to lessen my guilt through a series of biased tests that will perhaps somehow justify research I really should have done in advance. The main worry I have is the camera. And look, to be honest, I've already seen enough reviews that seem to say that the Panda will still come out on top. But I'm out to see how close the Note 9 can come out of petty geekery. After all, this is an Android comparison we're doing. So here's the tests. I'm not going to give you the full list right now because I'm recording this before I've decided just how many tests I need to run to give the Note 9 a good chance of winning. But nevertheless, here they are right after this. Read up. Portrait mode. That's the first feature that's going head to head. And to be honest, I think the Pixel 2 XL is pretty much going to come out ahead here. It's using Google's enormous stash of information on every aspect of your life, face, and interests. And it's applying all of that to basically get the best portrait focus blur that it can possibly imagine. I'm not sure what knowing about my spending habits has to do with anything, but it seems to work. I apologize for starting this with a selfie. I assure you that the bias is clearly visible here because I'm smiling in the Note 9 and then looking kind of dismayed in the Pixel 2 XL one, seeing that my 1-year-old phone is clearly taking a better photo than my brand new one. So from the start, you can see that the Note is a little bit more exposed and the Pixel has actually got the colors out of the sky. It's sharper. The edge on my hair is actually more accurate on the Note 9, I would say. But overall, it's a much sharper photo on the Pixel. And probably better. See the way that hair there kind of goes from like a blonde lightsaber to a really sort of sharp bit as it hangs over there. And then on the Pixel, it just completely cuts it out. Also, there's a bit more kind of blurry, I suppose blurred accuracy on the hair as it sits around my ear there. So in terms of focus accuracy, I'd actually probably say that the Note is better. It's just the Pixel took a way better photo. All right, so you'd better believe that I'm pimping out my family for this camera test. This is Iggy. She's a whippet, and she kindly agreed to pose for these photos for the small price of nothing. I actually just took them while she was sitting there. Anyway, let's have a look at the edging and how well things have been cut out. I'm thinking on the Pixel, it is a little bit better, except it removed her eye and cut out a section of her skull on the left-hand side. I will say that overall, I think the Note 9 kind of comes out ahead. Unlike the previous shot, the Note basically exposed things better. And remember, this is with the rear main camera. I'd say the Pixel 2 XL has definitely got a better front-facing camera. However, on the Pixel side, you can see this depth of field is kind of a little bit more accurate. Look, her leg is out of focus, whereas on the Note 9, her whole body is in focus and just the ground has been cut out. It's much more realistic on the Pixel over here. Kind of similar story here. You know, you can kind of see that there's a little bit of sharpness there around his neck, and definitely the Note 9, when it can't make a decision, it tends towards blur pretty clearly there. But I think the Note kind of comes out better because it's just better exposed, nicer colors, and I'm just a sucker for those little balls of light in the background. So a similar lighting scenario, this is full light, bright outdoors. Pixel definitely wins here on exposure. Didi's face there is just completely blown out, whereas he's got perfect detail on his face on the Pixel. In fact, that is crazy sharp. HDR-y looking, but you know, It's just a good photo. One thing the Pixel 2 XL really does here well is you can see that it's blurred away the rest of his neck and the parts of his body that are further away from the camera, and makes it just look that much more realistic. So here with hair, we can kind of see the two different types of masking at work. I definitely think that the Note has done a better job here. As you can see, the roof tiles are visible in both photos, but on the Pixel 2 XL, you can really see that it's taken some of these leaves and these roof tiles and decided, oh, yep, that's hair too, and just made it sharp. Whereas Note 9's kind of gone, oh, I don't know what it is, I'll blur it. And the bokeh looks better as well on the Note 9, even though it's there, it's definitely there on the Pixel. I also attempted a portrait night shot here. Pixel didn't really manage it at all. As you can see, everything's sort of in focus there. The Note 9 had a burl at it. Didn't really succeed. I mean, it blurred the background, but as you can see, it also blurred his hands and kept things sharp around his head. So ending this comparison, you can really see that the Pixel has done a great job of capturing the details of my forehead wrinkles and pores. Whereas once again, the Note front-facing camera, not the greatest at exposure, blown it out a bit. It's not that it's not sharp, it's just that the photo is clearly less impressive. And funny, you can kind of see that my face looks fatter in the Note 9, whereas it looks kind of more oval shaped in the Pixel. And that's a lens length factor, I'm sure. I think overall it's had the effect of making me look fatter in the Note 9 picture. So thanks, Samsung. I think you've got to go detail-wise. Pixel 2 XL kind of creams it, even though the edging is perhaps more accurate on the Note 9. So one interesting aspect when I started seeing that the portrait mode wasn't perhaps up to scratch on the Note 9 is that Android being Android, you can just grab the Google Pixel camera and hack it onto your regular Android phone. So that's what I've done here. Now there's a portrait mode that doesn't quite work the same way as the Pixel 2 XL's dual pixel. Instead, you have to take the phone and raise it up slowly. But I think the results are pretty good and actually much closer to what you've got on the Pixel 2 XL. As you can see here in this shot, Didi's background, his body is blurred compared to his face. It didn't work so well with hair blowing in the wind. It's just become a blurry mess. But with the selfie mode, I do think that if you really don't like the selfie camera on the Note 9, which basically does come down to the way it exposes, you can use the Pixel 2 XL, and in that way I've kind of got over it. Yeah, okay, there's kind of a bad blur there, but the level of detail, exposure, and the wrinkle render is somewhat comparable to the Pixel 2 XL, so there's that, I guess. I know the shots aren't exactly the same, but, sue me. Having a look a bit closer at the needle, I would say the shots are pretty comparable. Definitely can see a fair bit less noise on the Note 9, and the Pixel 2 XL is definitely warmer, which is kind of, everyone always says the Note 9 camera is a little bit too warm, but yeah, guess I don't agree in this case. If we go really pixel peepy, you can see that everything kind of looks smoothed on the balcony. It kind of looks like paint daubs on this apartment building here. And looking at the Pixel version on the right-hand side, it's smooth, but just not as much. You can see the noise. There's a bit of daubiness, but you actually see kind of color noise in the bottom of the center point tower there. Okay, these photos aren't exactly the same either. I tried to take them as quickly as possible, but we can still maybe learn something. So looking at the water taxi there, edge is pretty sharp. You really got this kind of funny, I'm going to call it the Prisma effect. You remember that app Prisma from 2016 where everyone was kind of turning their shitty Instagram photos into shitty paintings of Instagram photos? Well, that's kind of seems to be Samsung's philosophy with smoothing things out. This guy, he's like got two colors on his forehead. He looks like a little painting. Whereas there, he's relatively sharp, relatively noise-free. But if you look at the edge of the water taxi here compared to on the Samsung on the left, wow, it's super noisy. It's so noisy, I feel like calling the police to tell it to get off my lawn. Oh yeah, and more on that smoothing thing. Like check out the water there on the Galaxy. So painty. This is like the underneath of some bridge suspenders. And again, they're pretty much the same. Note 9 certainly got the exposure a little bit more pleasing. Pixel is definitely warmer and underexposed. It kind of looks almost green hued. These photos are pretty close to each other as well. I'm going to look at the ripples and see the Samsung smoothing. And you definitely see the smoothing on the Pixel 2 XL as well. It's just not as heavy. This photo has kind of got a fair bit of detail in the distance, but I wanted to look over here at these people on beautiful Sydney Darling Harbour tourist trap over here. And this is where they really start to look Prisma. This is like Samson Van Gogh over here, painting a picture of some people in like 3 colors. And then like check out the difference there, just kind of noisy and grainy on the Pixel 2 XL side. Basically the difference is really just in how they're sharpened in post. Other than that, and a bit of like exposure and color temperature, but really there's not much between them in terms of sharpness. Both photos look pretty good, especially when you zoomed out, and especially in the way that most people are going to watch them, which is on a phone. Stop kidding yourselves, people. Okay, well, I did say this was going to be a bias comparison, so in order to keep that sense of bias, I'm going to do a comparison where the Note 9 is pretty much expected to be better because it's got a better f-stop lens at 1.4, and that is at low light. But to be honest, from this distance, they pretty much look the same. But let's have a look at detail. Pretty grainy, but yeah, you've got everything kind of smoothed over a little bit more on the Note 9. Definitely some noise elimination there. It's still kind of usable, and I'm zoomed in pretty far. Detail's still there. You can kind of make everything out, but yeah, it's definitely aggressively noise reduced. On the Pixel, somewhat the same. Definitely more grain visible, but I would actually say that close up, the Pixel kind of looks better. The grain kind of evens things out rather than looking smooth and smeary. But then if you look over here, yeah, you can definitely see that. Yeah, you can definitely see a bit of that noise sort of creeping in. Look at the compression artifacts around those lights on the building there. It doesn't look particularly good. And also look at the yachts on the water. The masts have completely disappeared, whereas they're still kind of there in the Samsung. But the Pixel definitely looks more saturated there. Okay, now for a really low light test, because there was still some light in the last one. Maybe the Samsung will edge ahead here. Hope so. I spent a lot of money on it. Just from basic exposure comparison, they're still pretty good, but you know, you can really see that there's actually, you can see the light bleed from above the buildings on the Samsung, whereas there's just not a lot of color captured on the Pixel. The grain probably looks a little bit better on the Samsung. Pixels kind of looks dusty, you know, smeary, fingerprinty, and it's kind of inconsistent, you know. I don't mind a bit of grain when it's spread around, but when it's kind of blotchy like that, it looks like my first early attempts when I was learning Photoshop at high school. Yeah, I just clone stamp all over everything and it would end up looking like a dotty mess. We've got some more of that trademark kind of water paint effect on the Samsung over here on the water, but to be honest, it probably still looks better than what's going on with the Pixel. The Pixel looks pretty bad here. Oh yeah, I also took a selfie. Not that I'm a big fan of this sort of thing. And in spite of me not taking the time to get my helmet on straight, I was riding my bike, by the way, I did manage to get the photo relatively straight. And I would say that the aggressive noise reduction on the Samsung kind of makes it look worse, because my face looks like that it was painted by that lady who restored the Jesus painting in that Italian chapel. The Pixel, you know, there's digital color noise everywhere in artifacts, but it's still kind of a bit more recognizable. So I'd have to give it a win, although they're both bad. It's just one's worse. There was one comparison that I can't really make here, which is that using the zoom feature on the Note 9. The zoom camera I found is nearly always worse, but let's kind of see that up close. Noisy, smeary mess. Same sort of sharpening here. These trees look impressionist. The lighting looks like you've put posterize effect on in Photoshop. Yeah. Oh, look. A smeary pelican. Okay, so this part of the test is dynamic range. And by dynamic range, I'm really just looking to test how much in really extreme contrasty scenes, for example, shooting right into the sun, how much detail each phone can still pick up in the shadows. So let's have a look. The Note 9 has basically turned this lady into a blob of grain. Shadows on the back of this tourist kind of directions thing here. You can still read it, so it's still there. I think that you could easily make a case for the Pixel exceeding the Note 9 in this. It's clearer and less noisy and not kind of overexposed. It still looks about right. Did you know that Sydney once had a monorail? Sydneysiders can't forget it because they still haven't taken the original station down here on Darling Harbour. That's what this is a photo of. Anyway, monorails aside, and I'm sorry for putting the song in your head, I would say that these are pretty similar. I've got to get right in on pixel PP size. Again, you can see there's a bit of noise on the Pixel side. Note 9, more sharpened, more smoothed. The red's kind of falling apart on the sign there, where it's still kind of better on the Note 9. But overall, I would say it's a wash on these two. Actually, wait, one more thing. Lots of banding in the sky there for the Note 9, whereas this grey sky on the Pixel is nevertheless pretty even. This one, I'd say they're about the same in terms of detail. But if you look at the buckle on the back of that guy's bag, it's definitely cleaner on the Pixel. And the Note 9 is definitely looking kind of smeary, whereas the graining, it's that blotchy Pixel graining, but it actually looks better than the blotch and the sharpening on the Note. This scene's not kind of pushing it in either area, but I have noticed that when it's not pushing it, the Samsung kind of smeary, the Van Gogh effect kind of works a little bit here. Keeps everything looking kind of sharp here, whereas if you look at old mate here, he looks like half-tone dots, like he's been printed out of a dodgy inkjet. And you can definitely see lots of color smearing on these lights here, artifacts and things like that. Whereas they've just kind of turned into little fuzzy red halos on the Note, which, you know, it's not exactly good, but it's better. Oh, and look on those flags. You can actually read them on the Note 9 side. Can't read them on the Pixel side. Okay, so this test is macro, as you can probably tell. My dog Iggy kindly, whilst asleep, agreed to have her photo taken. So let's just have a little look. I certainly think that the Samsung got the focus point right on the eye and the darkest point of contrast. But I definitely think the Pixel got the colors right, because that Samsung's yellow as hell. But I also think that the f1.4 lens has kind of got an interesting effect here. You've actually got real background blur at that level, whereas kind of everything is, well, it's blurry there. The snoot is blurry on the Pixel 2, but not as blurry as on the Samsung. This is my other dog, Didi. Same sort of thing here. Center focused, more background blur that kind of looks nicer on the Samsung, better colors on the Pixel. Of course, I've got to get a nose in there. Not perfectly sharp on the Samsung, but pretty good, and definitely sharper than on the Pixel, which has chosen to focus on these hairs on the nose for whatever reason. So yeah, I think the Note 9 wins on that one too. Okay, I'm back and it's later, which you can tell because I have a different beard. Anyway, so verdict. Portrait mode, generally in favor of the Pixel 2 XL. Front-facing camera was definitely better, unless I hacked on the Google camera to the Note 9. And in normal lighting conditions, the mode just kind of worked better, except the Note 9 definitely had better edging, especially with things like hair. Moving on to the details and color, I actually think the Note 9 came ahead in most categories here. Yes, Vincent van Gogh sharpening, but generally when you zoomed out, overall it just exhibited less noise. So Note 9 wins that one. For dynamic range, I generally think the Pixel 2 XL came ahead. Yeah, sure, the Note 9, sometimes the sharpening helped, but generally things were exposed a little bit more evenly on the Pixel 2 XL. Low light, Note 9 again came out ahead. Yeah, there was over sharpening, and definitely the Pixel 2 XL took a way better selfie cam, but generally low light, Note 9 beats it. And finally in macro mode, again, the Note 9 I thought was better, better depth of field, better detail. Yeah, worse color, but easy to fix. So, Note 9 is the stills camera winner. Not biased at all. See you in the next one.